Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Senate Visitor Center. I'm Vince Garlock. I'm the Executive Director of the American Intellectual Property Law Association. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this year's celebration of World IP Day. I also want to extend the welcome on behalf of our partners to this great event, the U.S. Copyright Office, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Global Innovation Policy Center, IPO, ABA IPL, INTA, LESI, US IPA, and GLIPA. You know, each year on April 26th, roughly, we join the global IP community to recognize World IP Day, a tradition that began in 2000 when WIPO's member states set aside this date to raise awareness of the vital role that intellectual property plays in driving innovation and creativity. World IP Day provides a unique opportunity to celebrate that extraordinary contributions that we see made from creators and innovators all around the world. And this year, we're especially excited to explore how intellectual property fosters one of the most powerful universal languages of them all, music. Today highlights how creativity and innovation supported by IP rights sustain a vibrant, diverse, and thriving global music landscape that benefits everyone, everywhere. Today we celebrate not just musicians, composers, and performers whose work move and inspire us, but also the broader ecosystem of creativity, those who develop the technologies, the platforms, the services that bring music into every part of our lives. Music permeates every sector, from film and entertainment to fashion, gaming, stage, and technology. Intellectual property rights empowers these cross-industry collaborations, enabling creative synergies that drive innovation and fuel economic growth. Even when we're not consciously aware of it, the beat and rhythm of music and of IP are always there, enriching our daily lives. As we reflect on this year's theme, let us honor the talented creators, inventors, entrepreneurs who continue to push boundaries and shape the future of music through new sounds, styles, and technologies. Let us also recognize the crucial role that effective IP systems play in ensuring that their contributions are protected, are valued, and are able to flourish. Thank you for being a part of today's celebration. Thank you for supporting innovation, creativity, and the extraordinary power of IP. Let's join together to celebrate the heartbeat of creativity, music, and the essential role that IP plays in making it all happen. So I'd like to then thank and introduce our host for today, the Honorable Senator Thom Tillis. Please please join me in welcoming Senator Tillis, who serves as chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee Subcommittee on Intellectual Property, where he's been a leading voice on strengthening and modernizing the U.S. IP system. Since his election to the Senate in 2015, representing the great state of North Carolina, Senator Tillis has championed bipartisan efforts to restore clarity to patent eligibility, to enhance protection against counterfeiting, digital piracy, AI, and any number of initiatives. His commitment to fostering innovation and protecting creators' rights has solidified his reputation as a dedicated advocate for a robust and balanced intellectual property system. Please welcome Senator Tillis.
I was thinking about music. I love music, and I've made sure that my granddaughters love music as much as me, and also try and find a way to kind of connect. You know, I've got a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and to maybe tell you a story about that, but I also have to tell you a story about how you bring people together. I don't even know if Deborah Ross remembers when I first met her husband. Now, Deborah and I were in the legislature together. I was a flame-throwing Republican conservative, and she was a flame-throwing liberal Democrat, maybe. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit. But what I found common ground with her husband was on music. And what was the music festival that he was going to? Yeah. So I find another person, I don't care who you are. I may even be able to have a decent conversation with Vladimir Putin if I figured out he was a music person. I don't know, I'm wearing my Ukraine blue and yellow, so it's probably a tough haul, but it's just amazing to see how music can bring people together. And it's also music that may actually let me complete a 5K run, because I have been, I'm running, I'm about to do another 5K. It's the one I passed out in a couple of years ago. Everybody thought I was dead, so I thought I'd take it more seriously this time. And I've found that the Black Eyed Peas, Wet Leg, and one other group have the beat that I need to just hit about a 5.7 mile per hour pace based on my strut. So I literally am engineering a music list from all the music that I listen to anyway. I love Wet Leg. They're fairly relatively new, great group. But it's funny how it's going to make me a better athlete. It made me maybe a little bit more bipartisan because I try to connect on that level. There's just so much value that comes from music and the creative arts. And it's a very important part and a very gratifying part of my job here. There are so many pieces, so many aspects of this job that I would prefer to shave my head with a cheese grater than do. But one area that I love is the work that we're doing on IP protections. I have to mention Peter Pappas, otherwise known as Juice, and Jeff on my team who do the legislative work. But I feel like the IP subcommittee has become one of the most productive subcommittees in the U.S. Senate. We're producing real work. We're finishing work groups. We're getting a markup. There were people that thought that Prevail would never have a markup. Now, this is in a different space, but now we've gotten a markup. We're going to be announcing our movement back on Prevail and Para. We're making progress despite the objections of people in the patent space. And I think we're making progress in the copyright space. But we have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of emerging threats. And we have to do it for a variety of reasons. The reason I believe in ecosystems, I believe in creative ecosystems, and art and science have to constantly be dancing with each other to produce some of the most amazing innovations that were first the concept of an artist and later the execution of a scientist. They just work, you can see it. I mean, it's just abundantly clear to me, and I think it is to people like you, but we have to continue to communicate that our science is only as good as the art that gave us the sense of the possible. The lyrics in a song can have the same impact. It's led me to believe at the age of 65, I can run a fairly decent 5K because it's going to get the beat just right. And so when I go after all this stuff, I'm just here to thank you all in celebrating another World IP Day. But we also have to be very cognizant of the threats. What are we going to do? I mean, there's some great questions here. One song, many covers, who gets paid? That's a good one. What do we do with AI? During a IP subcommittee hearing, I heard someone who had an AI platform, an LLM, say that there were problems with figuring out if any copyrights were infringed. I very quickly on my phone, while he was doing his opening speech, say, create what appears to be a photograph of a Chihuahua a cat driving a 1960 Corvette with a surfboard in the passenger seat in a beach setting. It rendered really a beautiful piece of art. Within about 45 seconds, I held it up. I said, did you violate any copy? Or let's say I go out and make this a commercial success, a poster. Have you violated any copyrights? Obviously, the answer is we don't know. Well, you've got to know. Because if all of a sudden you make this look like a hobby versus something that you can make a career, then our creative community will suffer mightily. And we have to just constantly work one bill at a time, one work session at a time to make sure that we do not allow the erosion of the intellectual property rights, the rights of creators, to go any further than they have. And we've still got a lot of work to do to claw back areas where I think we've lost ground. So I want to thank you all in advance for your continued support, investment in the issue. If you're here to learn, those of you who are here to advocate, thank you in advance for your help. And just know that and I think the members of the Intellectual Property Subcommittee, Adam Schiff, who's my ranking member, the others, are committed to making this Congress, the Intellectual Property Subcommittee, continue to have the reputation of being one of the most successful and most productive in the U.S. Senate. So thank you all. I wish I could stick around. I really wanted to share a playlist with y'all I've got with my granddaughters. But I now can't get, I asked my granddaughters to leave. I mean, it's just giving, I think about it with my children. I think it's very important to talk about sharing music with your loved ones, sharing music with your grandkids or your kids. My daughter related a story to me about how much she liked the song Lithium from, God, why am I drawing a blank on Kurt Cobain? Nirvana. I used to drive my kids to school, and so I had a playlist back then that was, God, it'd be anything from Green Day, American Idiot, to, Marshall Tucker Band, to pick another one. But she said, Dad, I never really paid attention to the lyrics of that song until I became a nurse and I was working in a behavioral health unit. And have you heard those lyrics? I said, yeah, I have. I just hope that you didn't. But now I've asked my granddaughters, let's mix this up. I'm going to introduce some new music to you. I want you to introduce some music to me. And my two granddaughters, the two songs they wanted on the list were Pitbull, Fireball. And I hope to God they're not listening to those lyrics. But my 4-year-old related Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. I cannot get that song out of my head, but I love it. And actually, it's amazing because they've opened up, even that brief interaction with these two little granddaughters have opened up a new world of creativity for me. And that's what we have to do for future generations. And God forbid that we don't have net new content. So anyway, thank you all. Deborah, are you speaking next?
Yes, I am.
I'd like to introduce my colleague. Were you about to do an introduction? Oh, Sam, go ahead and do it. But I want to thank the Office of Copyrights. I don't think there's any daylight between us and the Register on things that we want to do. We just got a lot of work to do, but it's fantastic to be in a space where we really are working on a bipartisan, bicameral basis. And thank you all for being here. I hope you have a great evening. And make sure you keep calling my office for any threats, any opportunities. We want to make progress, and I'm committed to doing everything I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Tillis. Good afternoon. My name is Sam Aguayo, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director and Chief Policy Counsel for the Intellectual Property Owners Association. It's my pleasure to introduce Congresswoman Deborah Ross, who represents North Carolina's 2nd Congressional District. Representative Ross has served in Congress since 2021. She's a member of the House Judiciary Committee and sits on the House Subcommittee on Courts, Intellectual Property, and the Internet, which shapes patent law and innovation policy. She also serves in House Democratic leadership as a Chief Deputy Whip and as a member of the Steering and Policy Committee. Representative Ross has championed efforts to strengthen and modernize the U.S. patent system with a focus on promoting innovation. She's a co-sponsor of the Restore Patent Rights Act of 2025, which would restore the presumption of injunctive relief against patent infringers. In the 108th Congress, she also co-sponsored the Prevail Act, which would make numerous changes to the USPTO's programs for reviewing the validity of patents. We're delighted she could join us today. Please join me in welcoming her.
Well, I'm sorry the senator left. He and I have known each other for a really long time. I was going to tell him that he should be listening to Where is the Love by the Black Eyed Peas, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. We served together, and in addition to sharing a commitment to creativity, and I'm so happy to be here to celebrate World IP Day with you, we also co-sponsored a bill that let people taste beer in the grocery store. People were very excited about that. They had wine tasting, but no beer tasting until we came along. And we've been real partners on intellectual property, on the Prevail Act, also on some changes to the patent law for the Unleashing American Innovators for first-time patent applicants. And so it's a delight to be able to work with him and also represent the real vibrant community of innovators and creators and singers and songwriters in North Carolina. I was going to talk about some of the things that were in the introduction and that he would talk about, but I want to talk about something that, if you've been to my office and we've talked about music rights, also goes back to North Carolina. I read a book must have been about 5 years ago, but it's older than that, called How Music Got Free. And it's basically about Napster and how people really lost their creative rights. You know, we went from kind of payola to having a better system of dealing with that. And then we went to streaming services. And Napster, interestingly, got its start in a CD manufacturing plant in Shelby, North Carolina, where people who were on the assembly line would steal CDs and then use an MP3 player and get it out there. And that was the beginning of how music got free. But the same kind of thing is happening with AI right now. And the same kind of thing is happening with a lot of small singers and songwriters. And so I want you all to know that I'm very focused on this. I have the Protecting Working Musicians Act, which I introduced last session, plan to introduce it again this session, which not only lets small singers and songwriters be able to protect their rights to get revenue from the kind of bigger folks who purvey their music, including streaming services, but also adds in AI rights. And so we are at yet another juncture, just like we were with payola and when music got free, for how to protect the creative process. And when we protect the creative process, we protect the essence of what makes this country amazing, that we encourage and nurture creativity. So I know you're all here with that spirit. I am going to take that spirit to one of the only bipartisan subcommittees on the Judiciary Committee. Rough committee, you guys, but that subcommittee is pretty bipartisan, and really, really appreciate what you're doing. Hope you have a terrific World IP Day, and hope you have a terrific evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those very inspiring and interesting remarks. My name is Jenny Simmons. I am with the International Trademark Association, and it's great to see y'all all in the room. This is a great gathering of friends, and we love doing this every year with our government friends, with our trade association friends, private practice, all sorts of folks. It is my honor and privilege to be able to introduce Coke Morgan Stewart. She is the Acting Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Acting Director of the USPTO. It is great to have you back in the office, Coke. We're so happy. I think most everyone knows, but let me just do a real quick run through. She is leading the USPTO as the chief executive, and that is one of the largest IP offices in the entire world. $4.2 billion operation with over 14,000 employees. She advises the president and the administration through the Secretary of Commerce. And we had the privilege of working together at the office many years ago, where she was in the solicitor's office and various other places in the front office from 2011 to 2021. And she has served in more positions than I'm going to list out right now. But in private practice, she represented both patent holders and accused infringers in patent infringement cases throughout the U.S. And she most recently practiced with O. Melvin and Myers in the IP and Tech Group. And we welcome you to the stage and thank you for celebrating with us. It's a great day to have you.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Jenny, for that thoughtful introduction. And a big thank you to AIPLA for leading the charge and hosting this annual celebration. Also want to thank all the sponsors here today, and special thanks to Senator Tillis and his staff for helping with today's event, especially to his commitment to promoting the importance of intellectual property protection. To all the members of Congress, government officials, and IP professionals in the private sector here today, without your support, the American IP system, the American economy would be a small fraction of what it is today. Our world's innovators, entrepreneurs, creators, artists, inventors, and researchers would not be able to protect, commercialize, and publicize what they work so hard to create. Patented inventions have completely transformed the composition and distribution of music. The phonograph, patented in 1877 by Thomas Edison, was the first time in history that people could listen to music without attending a live performance. Since then, musical innovation has accelerated. The radio, the internet, the iPod, and social media have all transformed the way music is distributed globally to billions of people. Trademarks protect the name of artists, bands, and logos. Elvis, Lady Gaga, Frank Sinatra, the Grateful Dead have all registered trademarks to protect and monetize their brands. But IP is not just about famous artists and established businesses. Countless up-and-coming artists and small businesses rely on their trademarks for selling everything from songs to albums to custom merchandise. As President Trump said in his World IP Day proclamation, our economy is the greatest in the world because we incentivize individuals to dream big, take risks, and make the impossible possible. Through the promotion and protection of IP, we are empowering musicians, writers, authors, scientists, and inventors. On behalf of the USPTO, we are here to support our nation's inventors and creators in any way we can. We will work with everyone here today to strengthen the IP rights that are necessary to grow our economy, and we thank you all for your commitment to America's most important and valuable asset, our intellectual property. Thank you.
Now, I'm delighted to welcome my friend Shira Perlmutter, the Register of Copyrights and Director of the U.S. Copyright Office, to the podium. Register Perlmutter has held this position since October 2020, advising Congress and the executive branch on copyright policy and overseeing the administration of key provisions of the U.S. Copyright Act, leading a workforce of nearly 500. Prior to her appointment, she served as the Chief Officer and Director for International Affairs at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office from 2012 to 2020. She was previously Executive Vice President for Global Legal Policy at the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, relevant today, and Vice President and Associate General Counsel for IP Policy at Time Warner. Earlier in career, she worked at WIPO in Geneva as a consultant on copyright and electronic commerce, and she also served as the first Associate Register at the Copyright Office. Please join me in welcoming her.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Sam, for that kind introduction. And of course, thank you to AIPLA and its partners for hosting this event again. And also just a note of tremendous appreciation to Senator Tillis and Congresswoman Ross for their inspiring words about the importance of copyright, and also in general, their acting as true IP champions for us all. Now, we at the Copyright Office get quite excited when the theme for World IP Day is copyright specific, as it is this year. And music is particularly meaningful for me personally because I started my career as a singer before I became a lawyer. And in fact, it turns out that many Copyright Office employees are musicians, as is the Director General of the World Intellectual Property Organization. So music is something of a common motif for those in copyright public service. Now, it's been said that music is the soundtrack of our lives. I actually don't know who said it, but I think it's very apt. And it's certainly true that music has the power to set a mood or to alter moods. And we all know that feeling of walking into a room and hearing a tune from somewhere in our past, and just a few bars can be enough to make us smile. Now, at the same time, music is serious business. It contributes significantly to the U.S. economy, and according to the latest industry numbers, the music industry has added $212 billion in value to the U.S. economy last year and supports more than 2.5 million jobs in about more than 250,000 businesses of all sizes in this country. That is serious business. Now, it's the copyright system established by Congress, administered by the Copyright Office, that drives those contributions by enabling the necessary investment in creativity and in talent development. And I do want to call out in particular the recent bipartisan enactments of the Music Modernization Act and the CASE Act, which made music licensing more fair and efficient on the one hand, and also made copyright enforcement more accessible to musicians on the other. Now, one of the Copyright Office's top priorities is what we call copyright for all, and that means making the copyright system as understandable and accessible as possible to as many members of the public as possible. And for us, that includes the musicians who depend on the copyright system for their income. And so we provide a wide range of educational programming and materials that are tailored specifically to their needs. And my colleagues here today can tell you more about that. So I do want to end by thanking the community gathered here today for supporting copyright, and wish everyone a happy, almost exactly World IP Day.
Okay, we have a couple of panels, so I'm going to welcome Jackie McDowell from the Chamber to come up and get the first panel started.
I am Jackie McDowell. I am Senior Director for Copyright and Creativity with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, but you are not here to listen to me, thankfully. So this first panel, we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to have kind of a show and tell sort of feel to it, starting down at the end and working our way this way. And I will introduce them right before they give their presentations, because I know I would forget everything if everything came at me all at the first of it instead of as they were getting ready to speak. So starting at the end, we have Dave Pomeroy, who has been at the cutting edge of Nashville's music scene for more than 45 years as a bassist, band leader, and producer. He is AFM International's vice president and president of the Nashville Musicians Association, AFM Local 257. As a studio musician, Pomeroy has played bass on more than 500 albums, including 6 Grammy-winning recordings with a diverse range of artists, including Keith Whitley, Emmylou Harris, The Chieftains, Alan Jackson, Earl Scruggs, Sting, Elton John, Alison Krauss, and Trisha Yearwood. His television appearances include work with Chet Atkins, Vince Gill, Eric Johnson, Sheryl Crow, and Earl Klugh. He was voted Studio Musician of the Year in 1992 and Bassist of the Year in 1997. He's also released more than a dozen projects on his label Earwave Records over the past 2 decades. He's a longtime activist working for musicians, and he was elected president of the Nashville Musicians Association, AFM Local 257, in 2008. And that's his short bio, guys. All right, Dave.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Good afternoon. You already know this, but my name is Dave Pomeroy. I'm a musician, singer, songwriter, recording artist, and the International Vice President of the American Federation of Musicians of the United States and Canada. It's an honor to be here today representing our diverse community of musicians, singers, songwriters, and audiovisual creators as we celebrate World Intellectual Property Day, which is also my birthday last Saturday. It's kind of fun. And it's great to be here in Washington, D.C. I was an Air Force kid, born in Italy, and my family traveled the world in service of our country. I fell in love with music at a very early age. We lived in England from 1961 to 64, so I got a 2-year head start on the Beatles before the Ed Sullivan Show, which is probably why my older brother and sister are lawyers and I'm a bass player. We moved to Northern Virginia when I was 8 and lived here until I was 16, and it's always good to be back in this area where I have many great memories and began my musical journey. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee 48 years ago at the age of 21 to pursue my dream of being a professional bass player. Little did I know that I was in the right place at the right time, as Dr. John would say. I learned a lot of lessons as I climbed my way through the music business. Thankfully, I was able to make a living to support myself and my family, and I worked very hard for every bit of it. Over the years, I've been blessed to work with great artists like Willie Nelson, Earl Scruggs, Taylor Swift, and childhood heroes like Elton John, Peter Frampton, and Steve Winwood. Looking back, I'm very grateful to be able to say that my dream of being a professional musician came true, but as I look forward, I see an increasingly difficult set of challenges that must be addressed, or we run the risk of losing future generations of musicians, singers, songwriters, and artists. 16 years ago, I was elected president of the Nashville Musicians Association, AFM Local 257, and have been reelected 5 times. No one wants my job. I was treated well by the vast majority of artists and companies that I worked for, and that's the reason I got involved in the leadership of our union, was to pay it forward in the same fashion. Nashville became known as Music City because of the mutual respect between creatives and employers that evolved in the 1950s when RCA and Decca Records came to town and hired musicians Chet Atkins and Owen Bradley to run their operations. Chet and Owen made sure that musicians' recording work was covered under AFM contracts. This created and protected intellectual property rights for not only studio musicians, but also soon expanded to include songwriters, artists, and publishers. Because of this, we were able to get musicians and their beneficiaries paid for new uses of their work as much as 50 or 60 years later. And despite Tennessee being a right to work, or as we call it, right to work for less state, there's still a very high level of compliance with our various AFM contracts. Because why? Because most people know it's the right thing to do and it benefits everyone involved. When a record is used in a film, TV, or commercial, the third-party licensee, not the copyright owner, is obligated to make payments to musicians who worked on the record. One example is Patsy Cline's Back in Baby's Arms, cut in 1962, which was featured in a recent Mazda TV ad campaign. And a 90-year-old violinist named Solly Fott, who played on the record, came in to pick up his new use check from a session he had played on more than 60 years earlier. It made my day, and his as well. Getting musicians and their beneficiaries paid is my second favorite thing in the world, right after playing the bass. The music business doesn't have to be a win-lose equation. It can be a win-win when everybody treats each other with respect. We need the help of Congress to make sure that we never lose this essential ingredient of American culture and our economy, our music. Speaking of respect, here's a song I wrote about that very subject. And it's called Respect the Band. It's just in case here. Just down a little bit. Respect the band, respect the music. You ought to pay the players if you're gonna use them. When we make you money, we deserve a share. Just a sliver of the pie would make it fair. Yes, we love to sing and play, but we all got bills to pay. It's time to give us more than a hand. Respect the band. Working long and hard behind the stars to bring it all together. Making everyone feel good is what we love to do. But we're really getting tired of getting screwed. Respect the band, respect the music. You ought to pay the singers if you're gonna use them. When we make you money, we deserve a share. You can make it right and show us that you care. Yes, we love to sing and play, but we still got bills to pay. It's time to give us more than a hand. Respect the band. Time after time, we're walking that line, just trying to feed our sons and our daughters. We make the whole world dance, so give us half a chance to make a decent living so the music won't stop. Respect the band, respect the music. You ought to pay the players if you're gonna use them. When we make you money, we deserve a share. A little sliver of the pie would make it fair. Just because we love to play, we shouldn't have to give it all away. It's time to give us more than a hand. Respect the band. Respect the band. Thank you. On here. So I've been coming to Washington since 2010 to advocate for performance rights and intellectual property protection for musicians and creators. I was part of the AFM delegation to the 2012 WIPO conference in Beijing that resulted in the first international treaty for audiovisual performances, which has now been signed by 48 countries, including the United States. We made sure that the treaty contained the phrase, "no collection without distribution," which has been at the center of the AFM's work collecting money on behalf of musicians ever since. I testified in front of the House Judiciary Committee in 22 about this very same thing. Music has the unique ability to bring people together in ways that are powerful and cross many boundaries. The songs we write and the music and art we make, whether by ourselves or in collaboration with others, can have a significant impact on other people's lives. People who might not be able to have a civil conversation with one another about current events can smile, dance, and sing together because they are all listening to music that they love. This shared experience is a gift that we do not take for granted, and it is also one of our country's greatest exports. There will always be complex conversations and negotiations regarding these important issues, but if we take the high road and respect everyone's work and their intellectual property, we can continue to move forward in a positive way. If we do not, we run the risk of destroying one of our most valuable exports. We make the majority of the world's music, and it's being played around the world 24 hours a day. Over time, technology has enabled many advances in the creation and distribution of music. Unfortunately, technology has also enabled the possibilities of misuse and outright theft to evolve at an even faster pace that has allowed copyright and intellectual property rights to be seriously compromised. If this continues, working-class professionals who work in the creative fields will no longer be able to make a decent living or even a living wage. We need protection of our intellectual property rights against violations of existing copyright law, misuse of artificial entertainment, that would be interesting, artificial intelligence, and other future developments that could have a devastating effect on the music industry as a whole. I come to you today to simply ask for respect for our work and our intellectual property rights. It is absolutely imperative that we find ways to work together, both inside and outside the music industry, in a positive way for the benefit of all Americans. Thank you all for listening, and to everyone here for respecting the work of this important segment of the U.S. economy. We need to act now before it's too late to fix the issues that we face and allow the American music community to continue to be able to survive in these increasingly complicated times. This will have a big economic benefit to millions of Americans now and in the future, and we urge everyone involved to do all you can to make sure the music plays on. The AFM is ready to help these efforts in every way possible. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dave. And if you thought I was kidding about show and tell, I really wasn't. So moving on, we have Zinnia Manning. She is the Director of Global Music Policy at Spotify, and she sets the strategy on music and media sector regulations spanning intellectual property, AI, and cultural policy issues. She represents Spotify on the board of DEMA, which is the Digital Media Association, and has 2 decades of experience in media policy, including over a decade on the international trade and copyright issues at IFPI, the global music industry's trade body. She has appeared before governments and presented at conferences in Europe, Asia, the US, and Latin America. So welcome, Zinnia.
Well, Thank you, Jackie, for the introduction and for having me here. I believe this is a hard act to follow after a live performance, but I will try my best. So for anyone in the IP policy space, the World IP Day is obviously a special annual celebration, and I'm excited that this year the theme is IP and music. As you heard, my role at Spotify involves looking after global music policy for our company, which means that I do a lot of music copyright every day. But Spotify is actually a technology company that is based on all types of IP rights. We have over 1,000 patents, trade secrets, and a very strong globally recognized brand. So I'm here today to talk about how the Spotify business is built on these different types of IP and how Spotify today, which is the world's largest or most successful audio subscription streaming service, has managed to turn around the music business. This is a well-familiar story to this audience, but to put things in a scale, give you a sense of scale, 1 in 4 Americans, in fact, more than 1 in 4 Americans these days uses Spotify. And globally, 1 in 13 people on the planet have access to our service. And we're not even present in China or Russia. So even though our competitors, some of them have a larger reach than us, we are very proud in the fact that on top of being so present, we are also the single largest royalty contributor to the music sector globally. Last year, we paid out $10 billion to the music rights holders. This is about 1/5 of the value of global music copyrights and a very substantive part of the revenues in the US music industry. But a sense of scale is one thing. The other is how do we get to this place where streaming is so important to the music economy and is driving growth. Many people in this room will be familiar with the history of the music sector, which transitioned from digital piracy to a licensed streaming-led growth. I'm here to talk about the Spotify story specifically, and I hear that any good talk should include some secrets, something that gives you the feeling of you've learned something you didn't know before. You're very familiar with the story, so this will be a high bar, but I hope that I will manage to share with you something that is perhaps new. So how does Spotify succeed where other services failed? I'll take you back to 2008. That's the year when Amy Winehouse won the Best New Artist Grammy, beating a certain Taylor Swift to the trophy. And that's also the year when Spotify was launched. And this was at the time when the music industry was already in the doldrums, had already experienced over a decade of digital piracy. Piracy was, in fact, the predominant way of consuming music for millions of people. That led to a double problem. Not only did pirate services not pay for music to rights holders, they were actually, consumption on these services did not lead to greater spend on music overall in any other format. So the sector was shrinking. Record labels were having fewer signings, fewer artists were able to enter the music career, revenues were falling, there was less investment all around. And the sector was looking for new business models and new policy solutions to music piracy. There was also a lot of litigation against services and against music consumers. Our founder, Daniel Ek, thought there had to be a better way of reconnecting the music consumer with the music creators. A lot of people, I think, give Spotify the credit, actually mistakenly, for having invented the access model of accessing all the music you want at the touch of a button and with very little or zero marginal cost of discovery of a new song. Actually, this model already existed in the marketplace. That was the business proposition of pirate services. So how do you compete against pirate services that do not pay royalties and so have lower costs? The answer for Spotify was through IP-protected, consumer-facing technology and specifically speed. Back in 2008, downloading a file from Napster or any other pirate source actually took quite a few seconds to launch, if not more. Even streaming a file from your personal hard drive on a computer would also take a few seconds. Against this background, the Spotify team came up with an end-to-end customized media distribution solution that actually made the playback immediate. It was 250 milliseconds, which is the limit of human perception of what's immediate. And that was revolutionary. That was actually why people started switching to Spotify, because of this consumer experience of immediacy and not having a clunky service. That was the main reason, even though we wish it was because they very much cared about creators. But actually, the fact that Spotify was a legal service was a second reason why they were using it. Anyway, the technology enabled this experience. IP was obviously fundamental to it. So Spotify on desktop was the first stage for our service. It was a hit, but we realized that actually it wasn't where most of the music consumption was taking place. People were finding new music on Spotify, creating playlists, sharing playlists with their friends, but then they would still go to Napster or other pirate services to download their music, sync it in iTunes, and have it logged on their iPods for use when they're on and about town. So the team quickly realized that in order to compete with that, we had to have a mobile offering. To get that, we had yet another round of very complicated licensing negotiations with copyrights rights holders, specifically the record labels, to enable Spotify users to have access to 10,000 tracks offline at any time and not have to relog into the service for at least a month. That was necessary in order to enable the offline use of the service, which was super convenient for users. And as we discovered in practice, was a reason why people started paying for a subscription. This is also the magic of Spotify for the music business. We have developed a model where consumers, even at the zero cost to themselves, can enjoy access to music. And as they want additional functionalities, additional features, and that offline use, they can basically upscale to the paid subscription model. This is how money started flowing into the music business, and this is when the revenues of the music sector took an inflection point and finally started growing again. Because before that, piracy was simply cannibalizing legal consumption, and any other channel of music revenue was not sufficient to offset the overall decline. Still, it would be nice to say that all is well and the rest is history. That's not what happened. In the world of music streaming, obviously, there are regular licensing negotiations with rights holders. They always take place. They always involve a lot of copyright wrangling over price, features of a product, rates. This is standard normal business. But we are today in a happier place where it is simply a fact that a decade or two on from the era of piracy, the music sector as a whole is much bigger in terms of the level of investments, in terms of the number of artists who are able to build audiences, global audiences, and also in terms of revenues. And this is important for reinvestment in new talent and the careers of new artists. Now, before I close off, I was asked to also talk about the brand. We have at Spotify one of the most well-known brands in the media industries or music and entertainment sector. This is crucially important for us because we are based in and operate in over 180 markets globally. And we house all the creative content on a single platform, in a single app, under a single brand, which enables us to introduce consumers to new music as well as new types of content and leverage creative discovery for all. And creativity is the core mission for our company. For some of our competitors, it's an add-on side business, but for us, this is all about connecting creators with consumers. And that's why we want artists to succeed. And we give them the tools such as Spotify for Artists to do so. I wanted to mention also that we have an editorially curated playlist called Fresh Finds. This is one of the primary ways of discovering new artists. And some of the speakers today mentioned Wet Leg, or there's also I Spice and many others. Over 66,000 artists have been added to this playlist. And many of these alumni have gone on to win the Best New Artist, Grammy, and get basically amazing careers in the music sector. For more information about what we do, we'd also encourage you to look at the Loud and Clear report, which is our way of telling the story of trends in the music streaming world and how much we pay, as well as what are the cultural trends in music streaming. And on that note, I will also really look forward to a discussion later in this room or on the panel. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Xenia. And I love having the connection from the artists to the platforms, and also the discussion about how, especially being this celebration of World IP Day, with music, it's not just about copyright. It is all IP. It all comes together in some way, shape, or form. And on that note, we have another show and tell special presentation here. And while she's getting set up, I will go ahead and introduce our final guest speaker for this panel, John Cheek, who is Vice President for Intellectual Property and Legal Operations and Chief of Intellectual Property Counsel for Tenneco Inc., which is an Apollo Global Media or Global Management portfolio company, and global leader in the design, manufacture, and marketing of automotive technology solutions for original equipment and aftermarket customers. Prior to joining Tenneco in 2017, John was a senior IP leader at Caterpillar Inc. for nearly 20 years, where he served in IP leadership roles in the United States and Europe. He is a past president of the Association of Corporate Patent Counsel, or ACPC, and currently serves as vice president and on the board of directors of the Intellectual Property Owners Association, where he also leads the association's amicus brief committee. Most importantly, in his spare time, John is a professional trumpeter performing with jazz combos, jazz big bands, and Aurora Park, a Metro Detroit horn-driven rock and soul band.
Great. And I'll introduce this video before we play it, and apologize to Jenny if we didn't get permission to play it, because it's an INTA-related video. But it is a video created by a group of intellectual property lawyer musicians that perform annually around the time of the INTA annual meeting, which is coming up soon. And this was a video that some of us put together. I was not able to participate on this one to celebrate World IP Day for this year.
Happy day, oh happy day, World IP Day, World IP Day. We love IP, 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 we love IP until eternity. Oh happy day, World IP Day, World IP Day. It's World IP Day. World IP Day. World IP Day.
You know, as Jackie was doing my introduction, you may have been wondering, why is this guy from an automotive company and a tractor company here to talk about IP and music? But as a musician, it's something that is near and dear to my heart. And I want to talk today a little bit about the music ecosystem and all of the ways intellectual property facilitates music, both as the work of songwriters and composers and musicians and performers, but also the industries that go around them. So if we step back, the foundation of what we're going to talk about is for sure copyright, right? That is the foundation that makes the music industry possible, in my opinion. From musicians and songwriters who can protect their compositions and lyrics and arrangements and control the reproduction and distribution of those rights and creation of derivative works, to instrument makers, right? I am a trumpet player, very interested in the development of new technology and instruments, and find that many instrument makers do not take advantage of intellectual property to protect their innovations. Many of them are artists, and it may be natural for them to not protect those things and spread the ideas and the creativity to other artists to build on their work. Next, I think if you think about stage performance, right? When we go see a concert, musicians playing today, it's much more in most cases than just a music performance. It is a show of production value inconceivable decades ago. And that work is done by dancers and backup singers and artists creating logos and videos and three-dimensional artwork for the stage. To all the people that go behind the scenes that are creating the designs of the structures that make the magic happen on stage, right? That's going to be a little bit more when we talk in the patent realm. And then I think a lot about sound engineers, right? When we hear Dave play his song, it's fabulous. When we hear Dave play his song after working with a sound engineer, it's fabulous yet again, right? And the work that sound engineers do and the protection we give to the sound recordings they create with the artists under copyright law is important. And then as music listeners, Xenia talked about the importance of platforms like Spotify that help get music out to people. And as listeners, we benefit from the licensing systems that copyright law provides. And we benefit from the exceptions, the fair use that is used in educational contexts as well. So I'll just tell you a little bit of background on that video. There was a lot of discussion among the people involved about whether we could make this without violating any copyright. And research was done and concluded that this is a many decades or centuries old song at its core. And so we believe no rights were violated in the creation of that video. And certainly the folks that it really had a good time showing how music brings people together from around the world, right? These were people in the opposition, the name of the band that I play with for the INTA events, come from all over the world and play together one night. And it's kind of magical for the people that get to do that. So, the next part of the ecosystem is trademark law. And if you think about, again, each of these kind of stakeholders in the ecosystem, we have musicians and songwriters, protecting their band names and logos, using those on merchandise, right? Another industry that goes alongside the music industry these days. Instrument makers protecting their brands, the famous Gibson guitars, Rickenbacker bass guitars, one of my favorites, and the appearance of their products through trade dress and design patents. The stage performance creators, again, show names, tour names, all their related merchandising, and music video creators, iconic titles and character names or branded visual products that they have developed, and then even again back to the sound engineers, right? They have their own branding around their studios and their signature sound and the secret sauce they bring to making music the way we like to hear it. And lastly, music listeners who recognize those brands and the source that the trademarks identify for them. So next part of the ecosystem, patents, right? We talked a little bit about patents before, and I know you at Spotify, you have many patents. It's not something that you normally think of as a musician around the songwriting and composition, of course, but instrument makers do a lot of patenting. Music engineers and engineering companies do a lot of patenting. Stage performers and show creators, I've seen plenty of patents around how you make these things that appear on stage look real, how you do some of the tricks that, as we watch a music performance, we wonder, how did they do that, right? How did Michael Jackson lean forward on his shoes all those years ago? And it's because he had an invention that was protected by patent. So I think there's a great music-related patent story to tell as well, and it shows how all these pieces of the IP ecosystem come together, and it has to do with a name that we're probably mostly familiar with. If you're not of a certain age, you may not know the origin story of it, but it's the company Dolby Technologies, right? So this company was founded by Ray Dolby, way back in the days when all music was analog, there was a lot of kind of unwanted sound when you would replay back analog music. And Ray invented some technology to remove that sound from playback, and he patented his technology. He also went to the makers of at that time tape player machines and offered that technology to them on the condition that they could have it at a very, very good rate if they would put his logo on the button that activated the sound system, right? And if you're old enough, you remember pushing the button on your tape player to turn on the Dolby noise reduction. And then that brand became iconic in that field, so much so that we now think of it as Dolby in the digital space, where there is no sound to be reduced. So it's been transformative for a company like that, who is not making music, but is making music better for us as consumers, and making artists get their music out to us the way they intended it to sound. The other piece of the IP ecosystem is design protection. This is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's something that, as I look at musical instruments and the way they look, as I look at sets and the way they look, layouts of stages, all subject to design protection, design patents in the US, design registrations in the rest of the world. And so as you can see, we can start to put these pieces of the puzzle together, and IP is this ecosystem that builds on all the different things that the government and all the agencies and the great people that work in them have done for us to make this possible, and to give the artists at the foundation the ability to be protected. And then lastly, on the pure legal front, trade secret, right? Songwriters highly guard new release songs, right? Songs that leak out that are secret can cause really big problems for them as artists, maybe not making the opportunities they'd like. Again, instrument makers protect a lot of their intellectual property as trade secret. One that's goes way, way back, that may not be too well known today, but one of the more famous old trade secrets was the varnish finish for the famous Stradivarius violins, right? That, in addition to the way they made them and the materials they used, the varnish they used contributed, so we believe, to the way the instrument played. So, lots of things that happen in the music industry that can be kept secret and kept valuable through that secrets. Lastly, I think about rights of publicity, right? These are things that are on the fringe of the IP world, that we need to keep an eye on. And of course, as AI is evolving, right, we've probably all watched, plenty of videos online where someone has published a song created by AI, and you wonder, wow, what is that gonna do for the creative industry, and what, as Senator Tillis said, well, what's happening to the underlying IP that's being used to train those models. So I think as a IP professional, I'm excited at where we are with IP and music. I think there's a lot of opportunities still to come. And as we can educate people about the role of each types of IP in this ecosystem, the better, right? And make sure that artists and creators and engineers and musician makers and performers all understand how to protect their innovation, how to protect their creativity, and take advantage of these tools. So lastly, I would like to thank IPO, the IPLA, and to all the other sponsors for this great event. World IP Day is something that we all celebrate every year, and this is one of the more exciting ones for me with the focus on music. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dave and John and Xenia. We have a couple of minutes, so if anybody has any questions, then we can take some while you're thinking of them. I'd just like to say thank you all so much. I loved the insights of respecting the band for sure. That was a great, great song, so thank you for that. Yes. It is copyrighted. So, and how we can fight piracy and connect listeners with their music with innovative solutions. And I think that's incredibly important, especially as we are moving forward with all of the technological changes. And then, of course, making music better for consumers and making sure that all of the IP associated across the music ecosystem is protected. I think these are incredibly important conversations to have, and I think this is a fantastic start, and I'm so grateful that World IP Day 2025 has given us a greater opportunity to have these discussions. And just out of curiosity, how many people here are nerds like me and were in choir or band or music in some way, shape, or form? We're all connected. Absolutely. So, are there any questions? No? All right. Well, thank you all so much. Give them another round of applause. And I apologize, I don't have the agenda with me, but I would like to welcome the next panel up.
Okay, that's a hard act to follow. But anyhow, we will do our best. We have no, well, we do have show and tell. The USPTO is responsible for these posters, and Skip Wilson will speak on that behalf. But before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the Honorable Pauline Newman in the room, who's been a champion for IP for decades. So thank you for attending. So my name is Susan McGann, and I am one of the last of the organizations to speak. I am the current chair of the Intellectual Property Law section of the American Bar Association. My day job is working on IP and transactions for AT&T, which I have to say, for a hot minute, we owned Warner Media, and we owned all the Warner Media music and everything that came with it, but we soon divested that off to Disney. So not Discovery. Excuse me, Discovery, who has now owned that. But so I had a little entry into, entertainment. I'm a patent lawyer by trade, but all these talks today have been fascinating. It is my pleasure to moderate this panel with two distinguished U.S. government speakers from the U.S.'s two key IP agencies, which you've heard from earlier today. Miriam Lard, to my immediate left, is the Associate Register of Copyrights from the U.S. Copyright Office, and to her right, Mark Skip Thomas from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. But for those who do not know, the American Bar Association has been advocating for IP rights for more than 130 years. AT&T is going to be 150 years old in 2 years, so we just beat the ABA by 22 years. In fact, the IP section is the second oldest section of the ABA. Our advocacy includes supporting IP bills that benefit creators, songwriters, inventors, and small businesses across all IP, copyright, trademark, patents, trade secrets, you name it. The ABA provides advocacy, education, such as webinars and books. We host meetings and conferences so you can build your IP network. In fact, just down the road right now in Crystal City, I just left my ABA annual IP meeting, which some of you have spoke at, to come here to speak to you. We will be honoring tomorrow at our luncheon the Senior VP and GC of Disney, who that little mouse has played a role in music, and he was a former leadership role in Spotify, so it all ties together. So one of the ABA's recent accomplishments I just want to look at, I know I'm between you and some snacks over there, is our enactment in December of 2020, which was mentioned, is the Copyright Small Claims Court. We worked for more than a decade to bring advocacy in to support what's known as the CASE Act. What's that? That is the first federal IP small claims court, which was established. It's now called the CCB. So it has had some famous, I understand Paris Hilton has taken a claim to it as both sides of the fence. She's also been a defendant. So we're proud of that. It gives an avenue for those that cannot afford to go to federal court for a copyright claim. They can come to the CCB. We're also a prolific publisher of books. In fact, we see Elvis here. We have the Little Book of Elvis Law, which I understand has been a fascinating read on IP and other areas that relates to Elvis and his state. And you know Elvis, the epitome of a music legend. Yet today, with the generation and protection of music that's changing so rapidly with these available AI tools, what would Elvis say? All shook up, I would think. Or as our friend Dave says, respect the band. And that's what, you couldn't have, stated it any clearer. Really, that's what it's all about. There's a federal state split right now over the right of publicity with no national right protecting one's image, voice, likeness. Despite the spotlight on college athletes and NIL, there's no uniformity. Last year, Tennessee passed the Elvis Act to protect musicians and creators. Other states have followed suit, but again, no national law provides such uniform protection. This year, the IP section developed in support, we developed a ABA policy in support of a national law relating to deep fakes. Our section resolution was adopted by the big ABA that urges Congress, although both of them have left, but they've heard from us, to pass legislation to protect individuals' rights to authorize or to prevent any use of their voice, visual likeness, and/or image in a realistic computer-generated electronic representation. There's been, Taylor Swift in a porn video that had so many downloads, Congress has inundated from calls from Swifties to take it down. I mean, we need to protect our creators, whether it's, music or their name, image, and likeness. Something's got to give. I'm pleased to announce the IP section supports bills like the No Fakes Act to guarantee a national right against unauthorized Gen AI creations, like the now infamous Fake Drake song track. As a chair, I'm proud of the ABA history and of music between the ABA history and how its many proposals are directed at advancing IP and music. So I asked AI before I ended this remarks as to what would be a catchy phrase, and this is what it produced as the output. Music is the heartbeat of our culture, and intellectual property is the shield that protects it. Let's continue to innovate, ensure our creative works are safeguarded for further generations. Not bad, right? So now let me introduce Miriam Lord from the U.S. Copyright Office, who's going to tell us about more information about resources for creators.
So thanks for that introduction, Susan, and thank you so much for hosting us today. And I just want to echo Shira's comments earlier today about how important these issues are, how seriously the Copyright Office takes all of IP and our partnership with PTO, and our really serious duty to every creator and user of IP to make sure that they know what they're doing and that we know what we're doing when we're working together. So I'll highlight just a couple of initiatives and products that we have, but I just want to take a moment to shout out members of Copyright Office staff that are here in the room. So just raise your hand if you're here. Thank you. Because they're here to answer all your questions and to show off some of these materials afterwards, and hopefully you can take some home with you as presents. So we have a wide range of music-centric free educational programming and materials. It covers copyright law and protections available in the music context. They address things like the two types of copyright protections. Protect a works in a recorded song. You have the musical composition and then the recording. The process for copyright registration, and also an important point made earlier that your work is fixed. When it's fixed in a tangible medium, it's already protected. This is something that people don't usually know. Considerations when you're using someone else's work, and what a copyright owner can do when your work is used unlawfully. And then we provide a whole overview on the Music Modernization Act and how it helps songwriters get paid and the whole history behind that act. Some examples of these resources include webinars. We have a new series that we started last year just as a pilot called Copyright Essentials. And this was first meant just to demystify, just to myth bust a couple things around copyright protection. And it was just hugely popular. So we brought it back this year and in honor of World IP Day, the April edition was about music. We just held it about a week and a half ago. So that'll be recorded and up soon, but it just really goes through in a quick, easy to understand way all the things you need to know. In addition to that, we have music and copyright handouts and reference guides. We have a lot outside at our table at this event, things like this really beautiful How Songwriters and Composers Get Paid item, which walks through all of the different parts and is just highly visual and easy to understand. So I just want to point you to those, but if you don't take any paper home today, we do point you to this part of our website that's just musicians, copyright.gov/engage/musicians. You can pick one of these up, put it in your pocket, hand it to your favorite musician, somebody who wants to use music but needs to understand what their obligations and rights are. It'll direct you to all of these resources. One of the things we do is amplify these resources through partner organizations and through big conferences, things like going to South by Southwest, things like talking to small businesses at CES and making sure that when tech companies are using music or small businesses are designing their websites, they know what they're getting into in terms of their intersection with copyright. Shira mentioned earlier, and Susan was kind enough to mention earlier, the CASE Act and the Copyright Small Claims Board. You'll see a couple of these outside, or you can grab one from me. Just what is the CCB? How is it that you access this? And what does it mean for you? Finally, we have a brand new resource that I'm really excited to promote because it was something that we worked on with PTO on the trademark folks, which is a copyright registration toolkit. We have at the Copyright Office websites. We've got the compendium of practice. We've got circulars that really break things down and put them in plain English, but this is something new. This is something that is, again, highly visual, takes you through step by step what you already own, what you need to do to protect it in terms of having a registration if you want that and if you want the additional benefits it comes with, and what to expect afterwards in the same format as the trademark toolkit, so that as an advisor of artists or as somebody who is looking to advise themselves, people just have a ready reference and they're able to just walk through those steps and have a comparison of how to manage your whole IP portfolio together. So we just launched that actually just very recently, just in time for World IP Day, and we'd love it if you could check it out and give us any of your feedback. Finally, the Public Information Office is also part of the office that I oversee along with communications and outreach and all the different parts of communication that we do. And this is an office right down, I'll just say right down the road, but also right down the hall from where we sit right now since we're in the Library of Congress Madison building. The Public Information Office is a place that pro se copyright filers come. It's a place actually where a lot of attorneys come and ask questions. It's a place where all of our stakeholders come and ask questions. And I want to personally invite you, be that person that comes and asks us a question. This is a resource for you. It's a resource to be pointed in the right direction. It's a resource to express any feelings or concerns that you have. This is a great resource for everybody. While you're there, I want to invite you to visit our Find Yourself in Copyright exhibit. This is something I'm really proud of. I actually want to give full credit to my predecessor and to the whole team. I came on board in 2022 and they had already completely baked this amazing exhibit that includes, for example, the Dolly Parton and Whitney Houston recordings of I Will Always Love You, and a whole discussion of the power of not only the Dolly Parton songwriting and the recording, but then the legacy that continued to build after that with the cover by Whitney Houston. It also contains Kermit the Frog, the Statue of Liberty, the Cerrone version of Oscar Wilde, and all kinds of other interesting stuff. So please come over and see it. Give us a call. Let me know you're in town, and I'd love to see you there. So thanks for helping us get the word out. Thanks.
Thank you. Is this on? Thank you, Miriam. By the way, I need to correct Skip. It's Skip Mark, not Skip Thomas, my speechwriter there. But anyhow, Skip is now going to talk about the USPTO and these lovely posters.
Thanks, Susan. And I just want to again say thank you so much to AIPLA and everyone who organized this event. It's a real pleasure for me to be speaking on the panel and really attending this. This is my first time. So I'm the director of the Global Intellectual Property Academy at USPTO. And for those that don't know, GIPA, which we call it, organizes training, education, and capacity building programs to foster respect for IP and to encourage stronger development of IP enforcement systems around the world. Last fiscal year, the USPTO trained over trained over 7,800 U.S. stakeholders and foreign officials who were responsible for examination, protection, and enforcement of intellectual property in their various offices around the world, leading over 125 training programs. World IP Day is always a very special day at USPTO. Through GIPA, regional outreach offices, IP attaché offices, and other staff, we collaborate every year on many events to spark conversations and increase awareness of IP with our various stakeholders. And it's been really great throughout this week to hear from our different IP attachés around the world on all these events that they've been participating in. And this year's theme is really fantastic because it's so accessible, especially to the general public. And it presents a really great opportunity to have those conversations and get people interested in this thing that we're all very interested in, which is IP. And because it's so accessible, USPTO decided to create a poster series on IP and music, and we're hoping that it serves as a basic teaching tool about IP using understandable examples. And the posters that we have are to your left and in the back of the room. And I think, when you consider IP and music, you automatically think of copyright protections, which we heard a lot about. And the goal of our poster series was really to highlight to the general public all of the many protections that IP provides to the music industry. And so that, including trademark and patents, trade secrets, and of course, copyrights. And so, if you look at our posters that we have up, our trademark posters, we focused on branding and really branding as a way to build a legacy in the music industry. And branding really helps artists connect with fans, creating that unique identity that resonates and creates that connection, and also creates opportunities for artists outside of the industry. And then, thinking about American icons and other icons who leverage branding so well, like Elvis, Aretha Franklin, Selena, who demonstrate how an artist's image, values, and style can transcend music and really shape culture. And since you referenced the Little Book of Elvis, and others referenced Elvis as well, he is actually spotlighted in our poster series too. For our patents poster, we highlighted American patents of musical devices and musical instruments. Those devices and instruments that really transform not only the way that artists deliver music or play music, but also the way that we experience it. So you'll see examples like Gibson guitars and Rickenbacker guitars and Dolby. So it's really great to hear all of these great examples already. For trade secrets, we explored kind of how we currently interact with music, looking at the trade secrets that are linked with the algorithms that pick our next playlist on these streaming applications. And then for our copyright posters, we explored the exclusive rights granted under copyright using a song by Prince that's been covered many times, Nothing Compares to You, to show both the complex nature of the rights, but then also how the original performers and their representatives are still benefiting financially from their work. So we hope that you all can take a minute to appreciate them during the reception. But also, we'd like to let you know that we'll feature these on our website, and hopefully there'll be a tool for artists to better understand what IP is, and maybe looking at them, we'll see some opportunities to protect their many forms of IP.
Great, thank you. I guess we have a few more minutes, so I would ask you a question. Miriam, do you see an uptick in copyright filings to protect music? What's going on with AI, or has that's something that's been delved into?
So thanks for that question, Susan. It's certainly really relevant. Like you've heard a lot of today, the topic of AI has come up. It comes up every day. I like to joke about how I can't leave a room without talking about it. And I'm sure that's the case for all of you as well. We have seen some filings on AI-related registrations, not limited to music. And we've talked a little bit about in resources on our website. You can check out some reports and some guidance of what people have to consider when filing a registration, when they're submitting something that has been generated using artificial intelligence. And what we've seen since we issued that guidance in 2023, about 2 years ago, is it's not a huge uptick, but people are doing that. And now we've registered upwards of 2,000 or so, not limited to music, across all disciplines, but it's often a combination of things like a couple examples that you've heard of, which are non-musical, related to words that belong to somebody that are original, but images that may have been created through something else. So it's an interesting thing to see. What I like about that question and what it's doing to shape the conversation around copyright is that people will come to us for the AI, and then we can give them the copyright basics. They will come in and ask questions about AI because they're worried or they're excited about it and what it means. But once we got them, we can ask them, do you know you already have a copyright? And they'll say, oh, I thought I had to get something from the government for that. And we'll say, well, there's advantages to that for sure, but it's a little bit like going to your attic and finding that you have a whole treasure trove up there that you inherited, except, this is yours. It comes from you, and it is a renewable resource that you continue to renew, and then you leave to your heirs as a form of generational wealth. So once they understand that, then of course they want to know more about what's going on in that policy area, and we can direct them to some of that work that we're happy to do.
Skip, anything further?
I just wanted to mention a few things. First, the toolkit that Miriam mentioned, I think, is a really great example of the interactions between USPTO and the Copyright Office. And even on that website, there are links to the trademark toolkit and a trade secret toolkit. And all of these, I think, complementary resources for people who are new to IP and these basic building blocks. And we have another tool or resource on our website, the IP identifier, that's very similar. You go to it, it has both a basic and advanced process, simple questions, and you can figure out what IP you have. And then also, it leads you to almost a global plan for managing your IP. Very basic, very helpful for people who are just being introduced to it, but also leading you to other great resources on our webpage and outside for people who are interested and need to protect their IP. So, and I just wanted to really quickly say thank you to the Copyright Office, as well as everyone on our staff who worked on these posters and all of our events on World IP Day.
Thank you. So we're going to finish up, but I just wanted to elaborate on what the ABA is doing. And Miriam was at our conference. We had our first inaugural joint conference with entertainment and sports. We have a forum within the ABA, and it was really fascinating to hear, those that represent SAG and all the entertainers, especially they came down from LA, and about the strike that went on. And, one of the basics was, AI and its use. So we are branching out. We've been traditionally just, patents, trademarks. Now we're getting more, collaborating. People want to hear. I mean, as we heard, AI is here to stay. How we manage it, how we protect the creators. There's the tech folks on the other side, which has their side. Everything's fair use. The courts, it's in the courts right now, hands as to where that comes down as the ultimate decision. But thank you, both of you, for speaking. Thank you, AIPLA, IPO, and good luck on your conference coming up. So thank you. We know there's so much more to cover, but, I think we have one last speaker, and then there's happy hour. So please come talk to any of us. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Well, I promise I'll just be a moment. I want to thank our two panels, fantastic view in a very short time period about the IP ecosystem, particularly the music ecosystem. There's fabulous speakers. Thank you all for participating, for being here, taking the time to celebrate World IP Day with us. I want to thank the partners again, and particularly the heads of the offices, Coke Stewart and Shira Perlmutter, for being with us today, taking their time out of their busy days. And of course, we're very grateful for Senator Tillis and Congresswoman Ross for being with us here today. I was going to fill the rest of the time with my singing. We were going to break out karaoke, but it's probably not a good use of time. So thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your World IP Day.